On July 21st, 2022, Sam4Soccer2, the jungler for the Jade Dragons, would tweet out something at 11 a.m. that would shock everybody. Quote, "Well, I've been kicked from the Dragons. I'm not very happy with the decision and especially how it happened. I am still trying to play in the SPL, so we'll be looking for a team going forward. Appreciate anybody who sticks with me on my journey." And when I say it shocked everybody, I mean it shocked pretty much everybody that wasn't involved, as this seemed to come out of left field and even SPL players on other teams weren't expecting it. Now this begs two questions. One, why was he kicked? And two, who will be replacing him? My name is Black Eye. In this video, I am going to summarize information that was publicly available surrounding the situation to try and figure out what happened. I want to put a quick disclaimer and state that I did not really reach out to anybody, and this is solely summarizing information I've gathered from tweets and live streams. I did not try to gather any inside information, nor is the intention of this video to try and persuade viewers to pick a certain side. I'm going to present information, give my opinions occasionally, and allow you guys to draw your own conclusion. Without further ado, let's get started. Going back to the two questions I presented, we will answer the second one first, as it is the easiest one to answer. A few hours after Sam announced he was kicked, Smite Pro tweeted a teaser about 5 junglers that might be replacing him. Hazer, Scream, Adapting, Kirmi, and Oath. When this was tweeted, it was pretty easy to rule out 3 of these people. While Hazer does have the best Neath in the entire Smite community, I just don't think that would transfer well to the jungle role, so we can rule him out. It also wouldn't really make sense for them to pick up Kirmi and Oath, as there is pretty much zero evidence to back up the fact that they might join. That leaves us with Scream and Adapting. For those that don't know, Adapting was a former SPL jungler that was pretty well liked by the entire Smite community before retiring from SPL entirely in Season 7. The reason some people thought it was him is because he tweeted on the same day that Sam announced he was kicked that he was looking to get into the United States. People theorized that this was because SPL players are required to move to Georgia to play on LAN, and it's very weird timing that he'd be asking to come to the United States right when Sam was kicked. I get it's not much, but at least it's something. As far as Scream, well, Scream is the current jungler for the Scarabs, and the Scarabs coach tweeted the day before all this happened a couple things that leads us to believe that it might be him. The day before Sam announced this, Slaney tweeted, "Is it too much to ask for things to go smoothly for once?" The next day, he referenced a tweet he made during last year's Scarabs roster apocalypse, where they lost both Layers and Zapman, quote tweeting it saying, "Day too late." It is also worth noting that Scream won Worlds in Season 4 with PandaCat and PBM. People were connecting the dots and they thought just maybe the Dragons kicked Sam to pick up Scream. Sam4Soccer pretty much soft confirmed this when he opened up his live stream and essentially said that he's been scrimming with the Scarabs.
I mean, I don't think it is saying too much, because I think everybody's still figuring stuff out. But like I scrimmed with like the Scarabs this morning.
Which wouldn't make sense unless the Scarabs needed a new jungler or for some reason Scream couldn't play. But there's no evidence to suggest that Scream had to miss a scrimmage, and if he did, then why would they ask Sam to sub for him? We got our hard confirmation later in the day at about 6:15 p.m. when PandaCat went live and essentially told everybody that they were picking up Scream.
But yeah, I mean, moving forward, I'll be using Sam. We'll be playing with Scream from the Scarabs. Mike and I both teamed with Scream back in Season 4 when we won Worlds, and Scream's a really, really great player, and I see a lot of great things in the near future.
During the stream, I asked PandaCat if the Adapting tweet was a coincidence, and funnily enough, it was just one big coincidence. So since it's been confirmed that the Dragons are going to pick up the Scarabs jungler, Scream, this now adds another question, which is who will the Scarabs play with now? I'll go into this a bit later. Well, PandaCat confirmed that they were going to be playing with Scream, but why? Why did they decide to kick Sam? If you came to this video looking for like one specific reason for why Sam was kicked, or just wanted to watch some team drama unfold, well, unfortunately you might be disappointed. The other members of the Dragons have been extremely vague when trying to explain why Sam was kicked, and I honestly don't blame them. Again, there aren't really sides to this, there's not really a right or wrong side, and the news would have to come out one way or another, and I'm assuming they're being extremely vague to just, try and not throw people under the bus or try and reduce as much hostility as possible. This is why I've been emphasizing that we can just go over what has been said in the various live streams that ensued, and then we can draw our own conclusions. The next few pieces I'm going to go over are part of Sam4Soccer's live stream, the rest of Panda Cat's livestream, as well as the 2 interviews that Smite Pro hosted with PBM and Slaney. Like I said previously, Sam4Soccer started streaming on Twitch after this news dropped, and we got to get some insight on his thoughts of the whole situation. Some of the main points to bring up is that he knew he was kicked on Tuesday, July 19th, and he went on to say how there's a little bit of resentment to his team, but he was mainly critical of how quickly things went.
I did not get told today. I was told, what's today? I was told Tuesday. The Dragons are still boys. I was talking about how it's impossible not to be some resentment. In my opinion, I think things were handled very poorly. I personally felt the decision was pretty random, and I felt kind of like blindsided by a bit. Why are subs repeating? It just does not make sense to me personally for changes to happen with as little communication as there was.
This is also consistent with how the Scarabs coach felt, as he vented similar frustrations in Panda Cat's stream. Basically saying that everything happened really quickly, and he also didn't believe that everybody on the Dragons was involved in the decision.
The way it was handled with us was unfair. Rosters are supposed to be submitted Sunday. Also, the way you guys spoke to admins was done really poorly. I personally did not say a single word to any admin, so I'm not sure what that's about. But I mean, there's just no there's no planning these things in advance, man. There's no when it happens, man. Like, there's no you can't plan on a Sunday to change somebody. What was made aware to us that this was a trade and mutual? That was never my understanding of it ever.
I do not believe it was a total team decision, and I don't think everybody was necessarily on board. So that's why I think the way things were handled was really bad. I think there's no denying that in any sense. Everything they said just seemed more drastic to me than I thought it was, and still think it is. And I thought if they brought stuff up that they mentioned that I was getting kicked for, then it could have been worked on, and I could have improved on those things. But I don't think it was ever really brought up to me.
He also mentioned that he's not necessarily invalidating his teammates' criticisms. For example, he acknowledged that he was hesitant to pick some of the meta picks, and understood that when his teammates asked him to, then there was a little bit of hesitation there.
Now, just because things weren't transparent doesn't mean that some of the points that were made of reasoning were all off. And I definitely think there's a bunch of faults in the things that I do. Or maybe some random comments I'd make or stuff like that. I'm by no means a perfect player for sure. In general, I guess there was an issue that I didn't play what was considered the meta picks. People did feel that my mood would change when I was asked to play some of the more meta picks or do some stuff.
He also acknowledged that he didn't think he was playing to his full potential after the 9.5 patch dropped. But again, prior to 9.5, he believed he was playing extremely well.
That I think I played one of the best in the first phase up until the 9.5 patch, and I think I was kind of just one of the best players in the league.
As far as what's going to happen to him, he said he still wants to play SPL, and if that doesn't happen, then he'd consider SCC and streaming.
It would not be my ideal scenario if I'm playing SCOC or SCC. If I wasn't an SPL, I would just go to streaming. But making OnlyFans, I'm not sure that's the path I'm going to go.
Overall, he kept a pretty level head and was able to vent his frustrations as well as acknowledge his teammates' criticisms. So props to you, Sam. It's nice to see that nowadays. The next day, Smite Pro released 2 interviews, one with PBM and one with Slaney, and we got a little bit more insight on their thoughts of the whole situation. I'm going to link both PBM and Slaney's interview in the description, and I really recommend watching them both in their entirety. Starting with PBM, he did admit that there was some tension in the team and that there were similar issues last year.
So the decision to make a roster change now was not really pre-planned that much. Things just kind of happened, and it felt like you could feel a lot of tension in the team atmosphere that really wasn't getting put out there, and I think it kind of just sat until it wasn't addressed for long enough. We had issues in our team environment all throughout Season 8, just disagreements on how to play the game.
He then went on to emphasize that nobody really thought it was 100% Sam's fault, but he did acknowledge that people weren't as energetic and productive as they should be.
I don't think it's fair to say that it's Sam's fault. I don't think it's ever fair to say that it's one person's fault. Nobody's been toxic, but it's just not we don't feel energetic. We don't feel enthusiastic. It doesn't feel like everybody is pumped, happy to be there, ready to get to work, super productive, great mindset.
Now, in terms of how the Scarabs are feeling right now, during Slaney's interview, he mentions that they're obviously pretty upset as they believe Scream to be a very integral part to their team, but at the same time, he doesn't really fault them, as he did mention that there might have been previous roster issues as well. Currently, they're going to try some people out, although they don't have much time, but they are looking for somebody that they can get along really, really well with, and even said that this is just as important as the skill level. One thing that I think is worth noting is that they're trying to keep a positive outlook on this, and this is shown by him discussing that this might actually be a good thing for them. The Dragons might find more success with Scream, and the Scarabs might find more success with whoever they pick up, but only time will tell.
Honestly speaking, before this we had some other potential roster issues, and it led to Scream potentially looking at joining other teams, and then this happening again was like a really big blow to us, because both times it's happened now it's on an upswing of how we've been playing. It made us feel like that he didn't really have faith in us, so I don't really hold any bad feelings towards Scream. I just wish we could have had a bit more warning or time to prepare with, you know, rosters going forward. We're obviously trying to explore all our options. There are some obviously better candidates than others, but you know, we're a team that we usually trying to get along as a team really well. Like camaraderie is a big component to our team. I think we want to get along well. So making sure we find a player that fits on that team, fits in with our dynamic, is probably just as important as finding someone that's like really good. You know, it might be like a grass is green on the other side. Like it could work out better for both parties in the end.
So I believe all the information I presented sums up the situation pretty well. As for my opinion, well, it's kind of hard to say. I do believe there is some obvious miscommunication with both the teams and high-res admins, and this situation would have gone a lot smoother had the communication been better. I don't fault Scream, I don't fault any of the Dragons for wanting to make these decisions, but at the same time I do acknowledge that I'm going off of surface level information as I don't have any inside information. I also think it would have been a little disingenuous to try and gather inside information, as I'm sure what they want to focus on right now is just moving forward with the decision and improving as a team. I'm personally a big Scarabs fan, so personally it really does suck to see my favorite jungler leave my favorite team, but I've met Lucas a few times and I'd actually consider him a friend, and if he thinks it's in his best interest to join the Dragons, then I won't fault him for that either. If he truly believed that he would have more success on the Dragons, then I'll trust his judgment on that. I mainly just feel bad for the Scarabs, as around this time last year they went through similar roster changes, but at the same time, as Slaney mentioned, the grass might be greener on both sides. It sucked in the moment, but the Scarabs actually ended up placing third at last year's World Championship tournament, something that not many people expected. So only time will tell when it comes to that. I want to end this video by briefly discussing two things. The first one being that disagreements in general are typically a good thing. I think it's insensitive to think that if everybody agrees on one thing, then that is typically the best way to go about something. Disagreements open up the door for different perspectives that people might not have originally seen. They can then combine these perspectives to create the best course of action, and had there not been a disagreement, maybe their original plan would end up being worse. Secondly, regardless of your opinion on the entire situation, this is good for the league. There's a saying that all publicity is good publicity, and while you might view this as good or you might view this as bad, for example, I'm sure the next time the Scarabs play the Dragons, there are going to be a lot more viewers that are more invested than usual. And that's honestly what I want for Smite. Not in the sense that I want more drama and I want more roster changes, it's just that I want the game to grow as much as possible, including the Pro League. I love Smite, it's personally made a giant impact on my life, and I want nothing more than the game to be as successful as possible. This has been Black Eye, and I hope everyone has a good rest of your day.
All day, pray them niggas go.